objection to the minutes as objected?
As amended.
Excuse me, as amended, yeah. Don't mind me. Okay, no, none. All right. So you all had the opportunity to review the agenda for today, and any objection to approval of the agenda as written? Okay, none. All right. And John, did you have anything else that you wanted to address before we got started?
Well, just as parliamentarian, wanted to provide just a brief lay of the law. Many of you have heard this before. I'm sure we have some newcomers as well. And a reminder to the board that Regulation 43-170 authorizes the State Board of Education to take certain actions related to instructional material. The State Board can take any of the following options. One, it can permit the continued use of subject material consistent with local district standards. Two, it can discontinue use of the subject material for any grade level or age group for which such use is inappropriate or unsuitable. Number three, it can limit the subject material's availability to a student where the school district has received the consent of the student's parent. Number four, it can limit the subject material's availability for a specific grade level and where the district has received parental consent, or it can remove the subject material entirely. The regulation does define age, what age and developmentally appropriate means. It's topics, messages, materials, and teaching methods suitable to a particular age or age group of children and adolescents based on developing cognitive, emotional, and behavioral capacity typical for the age or age group. Instructional material is not age and developmentally appropriate for any age or age group of children if it includes descriptions or visual depictions of sexual conduct, as that term is defined by South Carolina Code Section 1615-305C1. And as a reminder to everyone participating and or watching, today's meeting is not the final decision on this matter. Instead, the regulation authorizes the State Board to establish a committee to issue a report and recommendation, and then the full board will ultimately decide and have the final say. And that's it for today, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you very much. Now, as we get into our instructional materials, here's the first one we have on our agenda will be Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen, is that Bosky? I don't even know the guy. But, and then we have the complainant, it's Elizabeth. And Elizabeth, if hopefully you're online, would you please pronounce your last name for us? I don't want to mess it up.
Can you hear me?
Here we go.
Okay, it's Salai.
Salai. Okay, great. Thank you. So you will have, do you have a timer, John? You will have 3 minutes to state your objection to the material presented, and then we will have speakers who will speak either for or against retaining the material. So, okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Ivy Salai, and I'm a resident and parent in Beaufort County. I trust that you've read my submission, so I'd like to start off talking about book banning. Is that what this committee is doing? No. Are you saying certain books can no longer be available in public schools? Yes. Does this mean students will no longer have access to those books? No. They can still be accessed in public libraries and at retail and online bookstores. Now let's talk about curating, what librarians are trained to do. If they choose not to put a book on the shelf, have they banned the book? No. If they choose to dispose of a book because of its age or non-interest, have they banned it? No. If the answers were yes, then every single book not placed in a library would or could be considered banned. So why, if a book is determined to not be educationally suitable, is it labeled banned? If a book was truly banned, it would no longer be available, and anyone possessing it could face penalties. And let's face it, we wouldn't be doing this today if librarians and educators had curated based on age and developmentally appropriate material in the first place. My district conducted book reviews, but these committees were heavily biased, putting all but 5 books back on the shelves. I'd like to point out that a large majority of the reviewers were educators, and they thought this material was okay. The supporters of these books will tell you that Beaufort doesn't support removing them, but how can they profess this when the committees were so biased? The efforts in Beaufort and around the state helped to lead to the implementation of Regulation 43-170. That brings us here to the first 4 books that I will be submitting. You've been provided with excerpts from each book, and I think you can clearly see that each one violates the regulation when it comes to South Carolina Code 1615-305C1. I'm not here to ban books, but to simply make sure the material that is provided to the children in our public schools is educationally and age appropriate. I thank you for your time and dedication. I do not intend to read any excerpts, but all of the examples have been provided to you in my submissions. First up is Perks of Being a Wallflower. It contains excerpts that violate the regulation. Masturbation is described on page 21. Oral intercourse is depicted on pages 30 through 31. A descriptor for anal intercourse on page 44, fondling of breast on page 127, using a sandwich bag as a condom on page 158, and finally, fondling of breast and touching of male sex organ on page 202. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. That was perfect. Got in just under the wire. All right. Now, speaking in favor of retaining the material, we actually have 3 people who wish to speak in favor of retaining. And so that means that we will, each one will have 1 minute. So our first speaker today will be Will Gunter. Will, are you on? Will, are you able to unmute yourself? Is Will on? Looks like there's someone up there named William trying to talk. Looks like we may be having technical difficulty. We're going to send John next door to see if he can get the technical folks to fix this. I'd hate to have Will miss his turn.
It appears we had a cell phone raise their hands. They've been unmuted, if that's helpful.
That's myself, David Cook. I just got in on the call. I had a problem connecting.
Okay,
right.
Now we will get to you in a moment, Mr. Cook.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Whoever that was, William, that was trying to speak is now muted again.
Speak.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that Will Gunter? Are you on? All right. Well, we are not getting Will Gunter. So what we'll do is, how about Rachel Whelan?
Hi.
Okay, great. Rachel, so since we're down to 2 speakers now, we will allot you 1.5 minutes, please. So
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm Rachel Whelan. 1 in 9 girls and 1 in 20 boys experience sexual abuse before age 18. So material covering that is not harmful to minors. It is age appropriate and necessary for providing students with hope and courage. Perks of Being a Wallflower discusses other experiences that us students go through. Freshmen feel out of place. Current sophomores couldn't socialize like everyone else due to online learning. In her junior year, my older sister grieved her friend's suicide. When seniors reflect back on the previous years, some will have stories exactly like Charlie's. If you remove Perks of Being a Wallflower from our libraries, thousands of students will have their maturity determined by strangers, their reading limited by the complaints of parents who, like our complainant has admitted in the past, only skim the text. I'd much rather be forewarned about these experiences instead of blindsided. Charlie got a happy ending, and that hope is something that students deserve to read. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next person to speak in favor of retaining is Rebecca Irvin. Okay,
Can you hear?
there we go. Go ahead. Yes, please.
I'm Rebecca Irvin, and I want to keep Perks of Being a Wallflower inside school libraries because there is over 3,000 teen pregnancies and thousands of cases of domestic violence every single year. And books like these could help kids understand that experience and feel far less alone. That would help drop the teen suicide rate, which has gone up 32% in recent years. Talking about these things, no matter how we do it, is helpful to these children because they'll feel seen and feel connected to other people in their community. If this is already happening to them in real life, why should it be restricted because of their age? I know plenty of children who have been assaulted, who have been raped, who have been abused. And I have lost friends to suicide who are my age, and I'm barely 18. So why should we take these books out of public school libraries just to allow these kids to suffer alone without knowing that there is other people like them, other people who've gone through this, and see how maybe this character was able to handle all of these things, because that would be helpful to them, and it may have saved kids already, and it might save kids in the future. So why should we take that away from them? I think it's a very useful book to be able to help them process all of that because they need help to process these things. They are very big things. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Perfect timing. All right, now speaking in opposition of retaining the material is David Cook. David, you are the lone speaker on that side, and so we will give you 3 minutes, sir. Go ahead. David, are you there?
Good afternoon. Sorry about that. So speaking on, speaking on Perks of Being a Wallflower. Sorry, let me start over. My name is David Cook. I'm from Beaufort County. I have both son and daughter in Beaufort County schools. It's horrifying to know that Perks of Being a Wallflower is actually a guide on how to get away with rape and sexual abuse, specifically when a minor boy describes how he forces a minor girl to perform oral sex on him. It's ridiculous. There's no justice dealt out to any of the abusers in these books, specifically this book at this time. And what I don't understand is how people can turn a blind eye to this, claiming that it's good educational value when it's not. The biggest problem that I have is that this book violates South Carolina statute 16-15-345, and this book also violates the federal obscenity statute. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. All right, Mr. Cathcart, does the department have any presentation on this material?
One quick thing, Dr. Hanley, Mr. Gunter was able to dial in via phone if we were able to allow him to have a moment to speak. So we have him. He's raised his hand. I will unmute him there.
Let's give him 1 minute. Yes.
Absolutely.
Mr. Gunter, are you there?
Are you currently able to hear me?
Yes. We ready?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Gunter.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, sorry, I was having trouble with my computer microphone. Okay. The main thing I wanted to state about Perks of Being Wallflower, a lot of these arguments are coming straight from the exact same book banning reports like Moms for Liberty. I read the Perks of Being a Wallflower thing on the Moms for Liberty website, and every single one of those appeals is quoted directly from the book. I think that this is part of a campaign that doesn't actually involve going through these books and paying attention and actually reading them, especially for the context. It's focused on out of context clips that don't present the full picture of any kind of element that may be inappropriate, especially regarding themes that have content that is harsh or difficult to read, depicting things like sexual assault, sexual violence. Those things are things that happen in the real world, unfortunately, and just denying the existence of those for all age groups, regardless of the context of how it is within a story, if it's presented as a negative thing, if there is some sort of justice is done to the perpetrators, how people in the story cope with that sort of thing.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Your time has expired.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Okay. Again, Mr. Cathcart, do we have a presentation from the State Department or no?
Yes, sir, Dr. Hanley, we do. Thank you all for getting that resolved. Just briefly, I think it's important to cover two main things in our presentation. The first are some concerns that we noticed with the appeal itself. And then the second piece is related to the actual concerns laid out in the book. So the first is in the appeals process. As you'll notice from the appeal, there was a request made under the regulation to the local board to take these up, to consider it under the parameters of the regulation. As far as the record suggests, there was never any vote taken. There was a vote taken previously on these materials before the regulation was in place. I think it's something of a concern because these materials, when the new law came into place and the new regulation came into place, they ought to be reviewed under this new standard of age and developmentally appropriate, as outlined in the definition which we're considering today. That did not occur at the local board level. However, the material is before the board for more than 90 days, and so it automatically came out of the State Board of Education because of that. I think that's just something kind of to note for this committee. It did come out of the local level. The local board refused to take action. And so instead, it's before the State Board of Education. The second piece, and I think just kind of as important, if not more important, is where this book actually falls under the regulation. There are passages that are clearly violative of the definition of sexual conduct as outlined in section 1615-305C1. And so I think in this case, this book ought to be removed because it's not age and developmentally appropriate for any student, no matter their age, under the definitions set out in the regulation. If y'all have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Cathcart. Do we have any questions or comments from board members? Seeing none, actually, I just have one comment to make, that although it would be more appropriate for Beaufort County to act on these books first, I think that this parent has had her due process violated for long enough, and it's time for us to just go ahead and take these up and take action on these. So if Beaufort County refuses to do that work, we're going to have to do it. So I think that's the only thing we have. And as far as your comments, yes, I tend to agree with you about multiple instances of clearly violating the regulation. From board members, do we have a motion concerning this particular book, The Perks of Being a Wallflower?
Kriminger. I move that we remove Perks of a Wallflower from South Carolina Public School libraries.
Okay, so from board member Kriminger, we have a motion to remove this material from all South Carolina school libraries. Do we have a second?
Collier, second.
Oh yeah, we'll go with Collier on that one. All right, any other comments or questions? No, okay. And so all those in favor of the motion as stated, raise your hand, please. And actually we'll, and then how about Shore?
Yes, I agree.
You agree? And Collier? Okay,
Yes.
good. Thank you. All right, so it's unanimous. All right, thank you very much. Now, our second material that we will take up today is All Boys Aren't Blue by George Johnson. Blue, over here. And for that one, we again, we have Mrs. Say it again, say your last name again.
Salai.
Salai, yes. All right.
It's a lot easier than it looks.
Yeah, I'm sure. And it's, yeah. Well, we'll have 4 opportunities at it today, so maybe I'll get it right by the end. So again, you'll have 3 minutes to make your presentation about why you are challenging this material, and we'll let you go.
Thank you. I'll make this one a lot shorter. All Boys Aren't Blue violates Regulation 43170 and South Carolina Code 1615-301C1, starting on page 201 and 202, where it refers to touching a cousin's penis, then both of them touching each other's penises. 206 depicts oral sex. Page 207 portrays masturbation and ejaculation. Page 266 refers to oral sex. Page 270 depicts anal sex. Page 271 depicts anal sex as well. And I hope that you consider removing this books from the shelves of the South Carolina Public Schools. Thank you.
All right, that was a lot quicker. Okay. All right, now, speaking in favor of retaining the material, I see we have Mr. Mark Baer up there. Mr. Baer, we only have 2 people who are wishing to speak in favor of retaining, so you will have 1.5 minutes, sir. Go ahead and unmute yourself, please. Perfect.
Thank you. It was my understanding that I would be speaking on the book Flamer this morning or this afternoon.
I will move him over if it's wrong.
We will move you. Okay, my fault.
Thank you.
All right, yeah, we'll move that. Okay. We have Laura. Yeah, Laura Eggers. Laura Eggers. Well, I saw that name up there somewhere earlier. Well, it's maybe Laura, because I saw Laura's name earlier. And then we also have, let's see, Rebecca Irvin. I know that name is up there.
Yeah.
There we go. Rebecca, we'll give you 1.5 minutes, please.
All right. So another reason I think All Boys Aren't Blue shouldn't be banned is because, again, children at this age, this is for high school children, it's usually upper high school children, so 17, 18, maybe even 19 years old. They already know what sex is. They already know what this is, and things like this have already happened to them. Many of them have already had experiences like this or had friends with experiences like this. And this book revolves a lot around being a queer Black person, something that isn't really represented in media a lot, but needs to be. A lot of people of color don't see people like them in media, and queer people especially don't see that. So being able to see that all at once is really good for them. Once again, it builds a sense of community for them and allows them to not feel so singled out in a world that is already so heavily against them. Being able to see characters that represent you in a story is extremely important for children, and especially for their development, to know that they are not the only person like this, that there is others out there. And that needs to be available for them to see and learn from, especially if characters like these are having to navigate this weird in-between area of childhood to adulthood like it is in this story. So I think it would be a very good thing to keep on board. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rebecca. And it looks like Laura Eggers has enlisted technical assistance. And so hopefully we can get her now. If we could get you to unmute yourself. You should see a little microphone icon somewhere on the screen. Mr. Cathcart, are our folks able to unmute her?
Yes, sir. Dr. Hanley, there's a Michael Eggers. There's no Laura Eggers on here specifically. There may be someone who's called in on a phone number.
And apparently that's her, though. She's shaking her head yes.
Oh,
I'm going to go with that's likely her, yes. So if we are able to unmute her, that would be awesome.
Yes, sir. I don't see her on here.
Okay.
There we go.
There we go.
Perfect.
Okay.
And we'll
Sorry
give you
about
1.5 minutes also. I'm glad we got over that challenge.
Okay. So do I have 3 minutes or 1.5?
1.5 minutes.
Okay.
You're the second person to speak on this same material.
Okay. My name is Laura Eggers. I'm from Beaufort County. And I had originally prepared 3 minutes, but I'm cutting it very.
Can we get you to face the microphone? Because when you look away, we're having a really difficult time hearing you.
Can you hear me better now?
That's perfect.
Okay. My name's Laura Eggers. I'm from Beaufort County, and I will make this short. I've read the book All Boys Aren't Blue in its entirety, and I just want to say that's a highly awarded book and much needed for many of our students that have experienced racism, violence, and sexual abuse. I'd like to remind everyone this book is not required reading. It's not forced on anyone, and every parent has the right to exclude their child from checking this book out or any book in our school libraries. But if you ban this book from the libraries, you're taking away the right of the majority of parents that may perhaps be okay with their child reading this. We have highly educated and highly skilled librarians that are very conscientious in what they pick for the students, and they know their students and what their needs are. I would ask the board that instead of listening to the people that want to ban books for their own beliefs, that you listen instead to the highly educated, highly skilled librarians that we have, and not ban this book and other books like it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, now speaking for the other side, again, we have Mr. David Cook. David, you will have 3 minutes. Are you able to get yourself unmuted? David?
Good afternoon.
There you are.
Sorry about that. Thank you all for giving me a chance to speak. This is David Cook from Beaufort County. We're talking about All Boys Aren't Blue right now, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. While it's an interesting book, it's not a personal choice of mine to read, as stories of human interest are always riveting. But that does not change the fact that this book is not appropriate for minors. It violates South Carolina Code 16-15-305, and it also violates federal obscenity statute. Under the premise that written and artistic depictions of sexual behavior are in violation of both federal and state law. This book lacks many things. Most importantly, under the regulation, it is not age appropriate, nor is it suitable for education in South Carolina public schools. Please remember to include this book, as well as The Perks of Being a Wallflower, on the state disapproved book list under South Carolina statute. Thank you.
Thank you. That was quick. All right. Now, Mr. Cathcart, do we have a presentation from the state?
Good afternoon, Dr. Hanley. A brief presentation. I did want to just kind of clarify whenever I was talking about the appeal piece earlier, my comments were in no way to deny the complainant her due process rights, but rather just to kind of clarify how we got here and how this material arrived at the state board's discretion. Once again, the local board did not take up this material under their own authority. They failed to do so within 90 days, which is why it's once again before the state board. And that's the case for all the first 4 materials on the list. So I think it's important to state, as everyone has agreed, this book is indeed available to students in K through 12 educational institutions and public schools in South Carolina, which means it falls under this committee's jurisdiction. I think it's important too to remember why this regulation was passed. There wasn't a clear, transparent, uniform process by which materials could be evaluated to see whether or not they were age and developmentally appropriate. At that time, the board, in its wisdom, created Regulation 43-170, went through passage, went through the General Assembly, and now has the force and effect of law in South Carolina. I think it's important as this committee continues to consider these materials to remember what the committee has set up, what the board set up in its regulation to follow, which is if materials contain descriptions or visual depictions of sexual conduct as outlined and defined in section 16-15-305 C1, that material is age and developmentally appropriate for students in South Carolina public schools. That's first grade to 12th grade, from kindergarten to 12th grade. I also think it's important to kind of just briefly review what this committee has defined descriptions as. That is anything that has explanatory detail that would allow one to visually conjure up in their mind kind of an image of what is going on. I believe these passages in this particular material certainly cross that line. We've talked about that line a lot. These certainly go beyond that line, providing descriptions of sexual conduct as outlined in section 16-15-305 C1. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those at this time. But our recommendation at this point is that this book be removed from all public schools as it is not age and developmentally appropriate for minors.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cathcart. Any questions or comments from board members? All right, hearing none. Do I have a motion concerning the book All Boys Aren't Blue?
Mr. Chair, Collier, I make a motion that the book All Boys Aren't Blue be removed from all South Carolina public schools.
Yeah, we have a motion from Dr. Collier that the book All Boys Aren't Blue be removed from all South Carolina public schools. Do we have a second?
Sure, second.
Sure, second. Any further discussion? No, hearing none. Okay, all of those in favor of the motion as stated, we'll start with raise your hand for those I can see. Okay, we've got 3 and for sure.
Aye, yes.
Okay, great, that's unanimous. And that one time. All right. Sorry, needed a little legal advice over here. All right, now our third material that we'll be looking at is the book Flamer by Mike Curato. And this will also be from Elizabeth or Ivy Salai. Again, was that close?
That was good.
Okay, good. And so again, you will have 3 minutes to let the public know why it is you feel this book should be removed.
Okay, thank you so much. Flamer is a comic book that violates Regulation 43-170 via South Carolina Code 16-15-305 C1 with written word and pictures. Page 14 depicts a character asking the main character about oral sex. Page 22 makes reference to oral sex, depicts a character with a hot dog on a stick held in between their legs. Page 23 has the same character with a hot dog between their legs, aiming it towards another character holding a hot dog bun in front of their bottom, all depicting anal sex. Pages 74 and 76 show the main character worried about the size of their genitalia and being nervous about looking at other characters in the shower. Page 80 is a drawing of the main character bending down to retrieve the soap that he has dropped right in front of a naked character with their face right at their genital level. Page 81 is the same scene in the shower with the main character worried because they are getting erect with their face in front of that other character. Page 131 has a picture of a character with their pants around their ankles, and the main character realizing they understand what it means taking care of business or insinuating masturbation. On the same page, there's a picture of a Mountain Dew bottle and a character saying everyone has to bust a load into it, and if not, they have to drink it. Page 133 depicts masturbation. I hope that you consider removing this book from the shelves of public schools in South Carolina. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. All right, now, speaking in favor of retaining book, we have Mr. Mark Baer. Sorry about that, sir. I got us out of order last time, so that was my fault. Not even the person who made the list. That was all on me. So you will have 1.5 minutes. You are sharing your time with another person. So go, sir.
Good afternoon, members of South Carolina Board of Education. My name is Mark Baer. I'm a proud South Carolinian from Surfside, Murrells Inlet, and Pawleys Island. I'm a nurse and advocate for queer youth, a regional leader for PFLAG, and most importantly, a father of 3 incredible sons. Today, I'm here to speak in defense of Flamer. This book is not just a story, it's a lifeline for countless young people navigating their identities in a world that doesn't always understand them. As a father, I know how critical it is for children to feel seen and valued. Flamer addresses the pain of being different, the fear of rejection, and the journey towards self-acceptance. While some may see the themes of bullying, self-doubt, sexual orientation as controversial, these are real experiences many young people face, as in most of the depictions that were described to you from the predecessor. This book doesn't provoke, it provides hope, validation, and a sense of belonging that can profoundly impact a young reader's mental health and well-being. In my work with queer youth, I've seen how representation can change lives. It can mean the difference between despair and hope, between life and death. Denying access to this book would silence voices that need to be heard and deny students the tools to navigate their realities. Education should foster understanding, not erase experiences that make us uncomfortable. Let's trust our educators and librarians to guide readers responsibly and allow students to learn empathy and courage through stories like Flamer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Perfect. Like you had that worked out.
I practiced.
Excellent. Well, you did a good job. Okay. And now, Rebecca Irvin. So, Rebecca, are you getting public speaking credit for this?
No, I'm actually doing this as a favor for my friend who's in school right now, so he couldn't do it. So I'm here speaking for him.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad. I always love seeing young people getting out and getting engaged in all levels of government. So great. So you will have also 1.5 minutes, and so go.
All right. Well, Flamer is a book about a young Catholic boy who's gay, and he's beginning to understand that and learn about that. And I think that is really important because there is a lot of kids like that. Kids who are just learning what it means to be gay, kids who are just learning that maybe they can have attraction to a same-sex person as them. And in times like these where a lot of that is hated on and a lot of these children are told that is so morally wrong, that they will always burn in hell, that they will be terrible people for this fate, I think it's important for them to see that it's not that bad. Being like this isn't going to be the end of the world. You can still be a good person and be loved and love other people when you're gay. That isn't something that is going to ruin everything in your life. And I think that would help a lot with things like bullying, because bullying stems from children not understanding others. They see something new, it scares them, so they try to make it go away. They bully and bully and bully until that person no longer can do that thing freely. And so they feel not in any sort of danger or threatened by some unknown thing. So teaching them about these things and letting them see it around and in characters similar to them would help keep them from bullying other kids like this, because they can see how this is an okay thing.
Okay.
That's all.
Perfect timing. Good job. And all of our speakers seem to have it down today. All right, and Mr. Cook, are you unmuted yet?
Hey, how you doing? Thank you.
There he is. Go ahead. 3 minutes, sir.
All right, thank you. Well, this book is also interesting. It's, again, not a personal choice to read, but it has both written and artistic depictions of sexual behavior in violation of South Carolina Regulation 43-170, South Carolina Statute 16-15-35, and it violates Federal Obscenity Statute Section 1470 of Title 18 and Section 1466A of Title 18. The written and artistic depictions of sexual behavior in violation of both laws. And this book appeals to the prurient interest of a minor and lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value for minors. No one is stopping any parent in the state of South Carolina from obtaining these books for their own children, either through their public library or purchasing them online or in a bookstore. I know gay people that don't believe these materials should be in front of minor children. Most importantly, it's not age appropriate, nor is it suitable for education. Under South Carolina Statute 59-31-50, use of disapproved books is unlawful. In all schools, colleges within the state, which are supported in whole or in part from the free school funds, it shall be unlawful to use any textbook which has been disapproved by the State Board of Education. Please remove this book. Thanks.
All right, thank you for your comments. All right, Mr. Cathcart, do we have a presentation from the state?
Brief presentation, Dr. Hanley. So as in the other two materials, this one came from Beaufort through the same process. And I just wanted to kind of briefly touch on a couple of points. I think it was mentioned briefly in the last speaker, the idea of kind of literary value. Once again, literary value is not a consideration under this regulation. The way this regulation was set up, if it has sexual conduct as defined in section 1615-305C1, that is a complete bar. So even if it has just a little bit, if the board determines that it's a description or visual depiction, that means it's age and developmentally appropriate for all students in South Carolina schools. So just wanted to clarify that for the board. I believe this, through our own examination, this material does contain descriptions and visual depictions of sexual conduct as outlined in SC code, and therefore is age and developmentally inappropriate, I apologize, age and developmentally inappropriate for students in South Carolina schools. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those at this time.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from board members? Okay, hearing none. Do we have a motion concerning the book Flamer?
Mr. Chair, Kriminger, I move that we remove the book Flamer from all South Carolina public school libraries.
Okay, so we have a motion from board member Kriminger that the book Flamer be removed from all South Carolina public schools. And do we have a second?
Collier, second.
Any further comments? All in favor of the motion as presented, please raise your hand. And how about Shore?
Hand raised.
Okay, and that makes us unanimous. Our next material we have is push. All right, push will also be the same complainant coming before us. So that would be Miss Elizabeth Salai. And so we'll let you have 3 minutes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Push is probably one of the most descriptive of all the books that I have challenged. I'm told that it is used as an example of why we so badly needed Regulation 43-170. I have shocked quite a few crowds with excerpts from this book. While I can sympathize with the circumstances of the character, which is not based on a memoir, but from student accounts as told to their teacher, I cannot help but think this book could be extremely triggering to students who may have experienced similar situations. Page 12 and 13 describe vaginal sex and excretion as told by a 12-year-old, and she also reveals that her father is the father of her baby. Page 18 talks about oral and vaginal sex. Page 21 describes masturbation between a mother and her minor child. Page 24 describes the father having vaginal sex with his daughter, her having an orgasm and his excrement from orgasm. Page 39, the main character is 7 and the father is having oral sex and vaginal sex with her. Page 57 refers to ejaculate. Page 58, vaginal sex. Page 59 depicts forced oral sex. Page 111 depicts the father having vaginal sex with his daughter. Page 129, oral sex, fondling, and vaginal intercourse. Page 130, oral sex and rape. Page 133, genitals on face and masturbation. Page 135 and 136, father sucking his daughter's breast and trying to fondle his granddaughter's vagina. I'll stop there because I think that is more than enough to show that this book should be removed from the shelves of schools in South Carolina. I do, again, thank you for your time and consideration. And I would like to say something that I did not have prepared. And I really do appreciate those people that are speaking in favor of keeping these books on the shelves. My hope is I want to see every person, race, color, sexual persuasion represented in books. All of our children deserve that. But I hope that our highly educated librarians and educators will now see to possibly looking for books that provide that without the sexual content. And I believe that that's out there. It just may take some time and some effort to find those books, but I do hope that that's something that they will undertake so that everybody can be represented and feel like that they that they can go to a book and maybe get through a situation and just not have that sexual activity in those books. And once again, thank you so much for your consideration. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments. All right. And now speaking in favor of retaining, we have Taylor Simon. Is Taylor here?
Yes.
Okay, Taylor.
Can you
All
hear me?
right, good.
Okay?
Yes, yes. So Taylor, you are one of two to be advocating for keeping the book, and so that means you will have 1.5 minutes.
Thank you all for listening to our concerns regarding these books here today. I am definitely not feeling too optimistic about this one, but I do want to share what's on my heart. I'm here to speak in favor of retaining Push by Sapphire on shelves in South Carolina high schools. Push is a powerful narrative that sheds light on systemic issues like abuse, poverty, illiteracy, and cycles of trauma. It's a raw depiction of these subjects, seeks to provoke awareness and empathy rather than titillation or exploit. Precious was blamed all her life for the abuse she faced. The blame the fictional character of Precious faces in the book is mirrored in this review today. We reduce the story to one of sexualization, but we must not see what happened to Precious as the same thing as consensual sex or depictions intended to arouse a reader. The explicit details in Push are not gratuitous, but necessary to convey the depth of the protagonist's experiences. Sanitizing these realities diminishes the impact of the story and dilutes its message. This distinction is really important to remember. Depictions of abuse are not intended to arouse. Precious evolves from the victim of abuse to someone who reclaims her voice and identity. As someone who has worked with sexual abuse survivors for 8 years, as well as a survivor myself, I know how this transformation inspires hope and resilience in survivors who have faced similar challenges. I first read this book in high school, the same age as Precious. Her life was so different from the sheltered life I was fortunate to have, but it's profoundly deepened my empathy for classmates I've looked down on for being poor or pregnant. When I later experienced my own assault in college, it was that book that helped me work through my feelings of blaming myself. Like Crank, this is a cautionary tale, not for kids who are experiencing—
Simon, your time has expired. We let you go several seconds beyond, but thank you very much for your comments. All right, and big surprise, Rebecca's back. All right, Rebecca, you will also have 1.5 minutes. Go ahead.
All right. I think this book should be kept in schools because if you take it out of schools, you're shielding children, yes, but by shielding them, you're putting them in a small box. You're keeping them from everything in the world. When I personally teach 9-year-olds who are stressed beyond belief about a door being unlocked because an active shooter could come at any time, I think it's okay for high schoolers to learn about something that could be their reality. Many high schoolers face teen pregnancies. Many high schoolers have been raped or sexually assaulted. I've known plenty that have gone through these things and blamed themselves heavily for this, even though it was never their fault. In this situation, the sex represented in this story isn't used to arouse, it isn't used to make a student want to do this. It is used as a cruel representation of what happens to so many children. Over 2,000 minors sought help from rape crisis centers in 2022, and books like this could help them, to help them feel like there's hope there, because Precious does have hope in her story. Even though she's forced to carry children from her own father, even though she's given terrible disease and has to live with this, she still has hope and she still carries on. And I think that's really, really, really important for these kids to have. Oh, that's my time.
That's it. Well, thank you very much. You're pretty good on your time. So, all right. And now, David Cook. Mr. Cook, have you silenced your phone, unmuted your phone?
Yes, I have. Can you hear me okay?
There you go. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'd like to thank the committee for giving us a chance to speak about this, providing us with a forum to speak in a manner to express our opinion on the materials. It's really important that parents remain engaged in the education process, because that seems to be the biggest complaint we hear from school district staff, is that the parents aren't engaged. And then when we are engaged, whether it's for the benefit of our own child or other children, we're victimized from it. We're basically judged by it in a very negative light. And the reason why I became involved in this process was when my daughter was in 8th grade a couple of years ago. A teacher in Beaufort County decided to describe the surgical removal of female genitals after an article was read in the classroom of a 10-year-old girl from Kenya that was forced into marriage and was subject to female circumcision. And none of the children wanted to hear about this. And it's material like that we don't need in our schools, much like this book, Push, which is so graphic that my wife threw me a look when I read some of the excerpts from the book that would have stopped a 10-day clock. This book has written and artistic depictions of sexual behavior in violation of the regulation and state and federal statutes. I would like to see this book indicated or put on a disapproved books list, which makes it unlawful for any schools that take part in free school funds to have these books in the school. And if you could kindly keep in mind as you move forward that while many students and parents want to keep material like this, it's a very, very fine minority of people that want this, and they still have their rights intact. They can go to a public library and take it out, or they can buy it. And I think actually through almost every school in South Carolina, they can probably arrange for the book to be brought to their school through a public bookmobile if they don't have it in their school. So that it's not outside of their reach to get the book, because I'm sure they could have someone with a parent's permission obtain these through a bookmobile and have it brought to the school in the event they're unable to go to a public library. Thank you so much for all of your hard work. I know this isn't easy, and I hope you all have a blessed day.
All right, thank you for your comments. All right, Mr. Cathcart, what does the state have to say?
Good afternoon, Dr. Hanley and members of the Instructional Materials Review Committee. So just briefly, once again, this material came from Beaufort through the same process, hit the 90-day deadline. After that, it was then submitted before the state board. to be considered by the Instructional Materials Review Committee. This material contains descriptions of sexual conduct as outlined in section 16-15-305C1. In fact, it contains a lot of descriptions. However, even one would be enough for it to be age and developmentally inappropriate in South Carolina schools. I did just want to clarify one thing. When this book is removed, that means it is not made available to students, whether that's through K through 12 public funds or any other way on campus. So that would be book clubs. If anyone brought the material itself, even with their own money, it's pretty clear that if this was put in a school classroom or any other way made available using state funds, that would be a violation of the regulations. Just want to kind of clarify that. Any other avenues, if the child wanted to read it on their own, at their own house with their family's own money, or wanted to go to the library, that's obviously all possible, but it is not to be made available to students at their local public school. So just wanted to clarify and nuance that really quickly. If y'all have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those at this time.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Mr. Cathcart? Okay. Do I have a motion for any action on the book push at this time?
Sure. I'd like to motion to remove a novel, Push, from all public schools in South Carolina, as I feel it violates South Carolina Code of Laws, section 16-15-305C1.
We have a motion from Board Member Shore to remove this material from all South Carolina public schools. Do I have a second?
Mathis, second.
Mathis, okay. Any further discussion? All right. All of those in favor of the motion as is presented, signify by raising your hand. Okay, I've got 3, and for sure?
Hand raised.
Okay, great, thank you. All right. And now it looks like Ms. Salai is finally off the hook. Now the next material we have is Bronx Masquerade by Nikki Grimes. And this is coming from Miss Emily Clement. Miss Clement came to us a few months ago, and we felt like we needed more information about the materials that she was challenging. And so we gave her the opportunity to provide further quotes from the books. So do we have her online now? Emily Clement,
Dr.
are you
Hanley,
there?
Dr. Hanley, Ms. Clement had reached out and said unless there were any questions the committee had, she was fine not testifying at this time. So I don't believe she's on the call either.
So she's not online. Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
all of the board members have had the opportunity to read her complaint with all of the materials that she included from the books. Now, speaking in favor of retaining the material, we have Annie Mahaffey. Is Annie online?
Yes, I'm here.
Earlier. Okay, great.
I'm here.
So you are one of 2 people speaking on behalf of this book, so you will have 1.5 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Bronx Masquerade is a beautiful novel full of tenacity, honesty, and innocence. In reading the submitted appeal, I found it interesting that besides the fact that the highlighted passages obviously do not violate regulations, in each situation being highlighted, someone is actually standing up for what is right, whether it's on behalf of themselves or a classmate. In the entire book, there's nothing remotely sexually graphic. It's just a story about high schoolers who learn to love and accept one another in spite of and often because of their differences. While studying the Harlem Renaissance and reading Black writers and poets, the students, primarily Black and Brown, are inspired to start writing their own poetry. They organize a space for any student who wants to share poetry, art, rap, and music. The book is a collection of their journal-like thoughts and poetry. Throughout the novel, I caught glimpses inside the hearts and heads of these students and came away with a resounding theme. They all want to be loved and seen for who they are. Each student struggles with something different. These characters are real and relatable. They reflect the diversity and complexity found in any public high school classroom. And most importantly, they give an example for how to embrace that diversity instead of erasing it. In the last chapter, one student says, "I just want to say I'm really glad I got to do this poetry thing because I feel like even though the people in our class are all different colors and some of you speak a different language and everything, I feel like we connected. I feel like I know you now. I feel like we're not as different as I thought. Don't you think that is a message we should want our high schoolers to be reading? I encourage you to keep this book in South Carolina public schools.
Nailed the time. Perfect. Okay. And Rebecca, are you still with us?
Yep.
All right, great. So again, you have 1.5 minutes.
All right, I see this book as a really important one to keep because not only is it these students, really students of color, experiencing these things and telling their story from their points of view, but it's also expressing a healthy way to deal with these things. They're writing about it in poetry, they're talking about it, and they're supporting each other. They're building a sort of community there to deal with their feelings and things that may or may not have happened to them, such as their lack of love they're receiving and how they want to find that and how they need that in their lives. And they're learning how to have that from each other and how to deal with that. Writing poetry is a very good way for these children to deal with it, and it would be a good model for students to see so that they know, oh, if I'm dealing with these really, really big feelings, instead of doing something drastic like going out and causing mayhem, they are like, well, maybe I should talk about this. Maybe I should write something about it, or I can go to my group of friends and I can tell them all about it and they'll support me with this because that's what I've seen them do in the books. I've seen them be kind to each other. I've seen them talk about it and support each other, even though these things can be hard to deal with, especially at that age. So it's a good book to really teach a student to not only accept others, but build upon themselves to be able to handle the things that are happening to them.
Okay. Also, perfect timing. And you guys are getting this down. All right, Mr. Cathcart. What do we have from the state? There you go. We did
Yes,
not have
sir.
anyone that wanted to speak on behalf of retaining the opposition, excuse me, to retaining the material.
Yes, sir. So just briefly, just wanted to go over once again kind of the history and why this material has ended up in front of this committee and then ultimately most likely in front of the state board. This material was recommended as a long read by the HMH into Literature 8th grade curriculum. And as such, under that kind of umbrella of the curriculum, it was seen fit that the state board ought to take this up rather than the local district. Last meeting 2 months ago, the committee had a hearing and there was not enough information given, so the committee requested additional information. The additional information is in your packets and posted on the website. It is our opinion that the material does not cross the line and it does not contain descriptions of sexual conduct as outlined, as described and defined in 1615-305C1. If y'all have any questions, more than happy to answer those at this time. And one other just brief. Oh, sorry. One other brief thing I'll say, even though that is kind of the ultimate bar, also in reviewing these passages seem to be age and developmentally appropriate in general, so meeting that definition.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Mr. Cathcart? All right. Actually, yeah, I'm actually a little disappointed that Emily is not here with us today. I was kind of hoping to be able to ask her because I was not entirely sure what she found offensive about this material. So I was kind of hoping to ask her a few questions about that, but that's okay. We can roll with what we have in front of us. So do we have a motion concerning the book Bronx Masquerade?
Mr. Chair, Creminger, I move that we retain the novel Bronx Masquerade in all South Carolina public schools.
And we have a motion from Ms. Creminger to retain this book in South Carolina Public Schools. Do we have a second?
Collier, second.
Collier, we'll take Collier. All right. Any further comments? Discussion? All right. Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor of retaining this material and along with the motion that was made, please raise your hand. 2, and how about Shore?
Shore, hand up.
Shore's up. Okay, unanimous again. Great, thank you. And our last material that we'll be reviewing today is House on Mango Street. This was also one that was brought to us in November. We didn't feel like we got enough information to be able to make a decision about. And so we gave Emily Clement the opportunity to provide more information, which she has. And as we've already heard, she's not here. We have 3 speakers who wish to speak in favor of retaining this material. The first one, I know I've seen this name up there today, is Heather Hillis. Is Heather there with us?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
There you are. Great. Perfect.
Yes.
All right. Heather, because there are 3 people who want to speak on this topic, you will each get 1 minute. So go when you're ready.
Thank you. My name is Heather Hillis. I'm a Chester County teacher librarian and a member of SCASL. When this board bans books, you take the freedom of choice from our readers by unconstitutionally weaponizing the Department of Education, by limiting the freedoms of South Carolina teen readers. As a professional, it's my job to provide resources so my readers see themselves reflected in the books they read. It's the parents' job to filter what they deem inappropriate or too mature. When you ban books, you are not only removing the rights of readers, but making decisions that, by rights, fall to the parents. Case in point, the House on Mango Street highlights the Latino community, an already unserved population in literature. Readers see real-world struggles for teens, poverty, identity, belonging, themes of self-discovery and the importance of personal voice, which encourage young women to be independent while mirroring authentic struggles of young adults in the Latino community. Please read the entire book and not the questionable sections, a small part of this context of this book. When we ban books, we muzzle the voices of our readers who deserve the freedom to read. In a world of limitations, why should we limit their access when the school library may be all they have? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right. I have not seen her on yet today, but is Dr. Haverkamp on? We have her today. Can we get her to unmute herself?
I'm here.
There you are. Great. You, ma'am, will also have 1 minute. Please go.
The big challenge to House on Mango Street brought by Ms. Clemens said her son was made uncomfortable by this book. It is rated 13 plus in Common Sense Media, which is actually a conservative leaning book rating system, but I believe her son was in 8th grade. I want to say, is this book right for middle class white boys? I raised 2 boys in a highly educated upper middle class household where they played sports and earned their Eagle Scout badges. I was delighted every time they were assigned or chose an emotionally challenging read. I want my privileged white boys to be uncomfortable. I want them to see how damaging poverty, lack of language skills, rampant sexism, and sexual violence impact Esperanza in Cisneros' book. I want them to see the impact on a youth's dream deferred. I want them to see that generational trauma and pain impacts people across cultures. I want them to see how warped it is that our society values a white boy's comfort and a white boy's future more than a girl's safety and bodily autonomy. Most importantly, I want them to see the impact of injustice.
Your time has expired. We let you go a little over, but thank you for your comments and congratulations on raising 2 Eagle Scouts. That's pretty awesome. So good for you. All right. And Rebecca, for your last appearance of the day. All right, Rebecca, you also have 1 minute.
All right, so this book is really, I've seen a theme today with the books that are up for ban. A lot of them are about people of color. They're about queer people. They're about people who've experienced a lot of struggles and a lot of trials. And I think that's extremely unfair. As the 2 people before me have mentioned, people need to be uncomfortable. People need to see different views. They need to see, oh, I'm not the gold standard here. There's other people who are struggling and going through it right now. There's plenty of sexism. There's plenty of sexual violence that's happening around me. And I need to be aware of that because these are real struggles that the people I know, the people I love could be going through, and I would have no idea. This needs to be something talked about so that they can begin to understand that and help the people around them who need it, because these children do need it. They need to see other people and know that they are not the only type of person to exist.
Thank you. Well, you are perfect at managing your time. That's pretty awesome. Okay. Now, from the department, Mr. Cathcart.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Dr. Hanley, members of the Instructional Materials Review Committee. This one, like the last material, was brought up because it was recommended as a long read under the HMH 8th grade English literature curriculum. That's why the board ended up taking it up. Just like the last one, it was brought up at the last meeting. Y'all asked for additional information, and so the additional information is here, submitted by the complainant. It is our view that these materials do not contain descriptions of sexual conduct as outlined in 1615-305C1, and that in general, this material is age and developmentally appropriate and therefore should not be removed from South Carolina schools. If you have any questions at this time, more than happy to answer. One last thing I will say too, I know there were some mentions of different rating systems and things like that. This board does not necessarily use those to rely on for its decision, particularly when it comes to sexual conduct. Those are not dispositive. However, in our review of this material, it is age and developmental appropriate and does not contain those descriptions of sexual conduct. So,
Okay. Any questions or comments from Mr. Cathcart? All right,
Mr. Chair.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
I would just like to add, sometimes they don't think that we actually read their emails or actually read the materials that are sent to us. But as a former English teacher, I actually did teach The House on Mango Street at the long read to my English classes.
Excellent. Yeah, and I will piggyback on that. I promise you, every single email, which I've received dozens of them in the last week, every single email I read. And although there were several that came from some sort of a service this time, and so it was impossible to reply to them. The ones that I get directly from people and not some, other server, I reply at least a brief message to let them know that their message was received and somebody read it. So yeah, I can promise you every single one of them has been read, and to the extent we can, we take them into account. So yes, thank you for that comment. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. Do we have a motion concerning the house on Mango Street?
Mr. Chair, sure. I'd like to make a motion to retain House on Mango Street in public school libraries, as I do not feel it violates South Carolina Code of Laws, Section 1615-305C1.
Okay, we have a motion from Board Member Shore to retain House on Mango Street in all South Carolina public schools. Do we have a second?
Mathis, second.
Mathis for second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion as stated, please raise your hand. Okay, that's 3, and for sure.
Hand up.
Okay, that's also unanimous. Great, thank you. All right. That will be the last material that we'll be reviewing today. Now, since we were unanimous on all 6 of the materials that we reviewed today, is there any objection to placing all 6 of these on the consent agenda for our next full board meeting? Okay, I see a lot of head shaking no. So, all right, we're good. Is there any other business that we need to attend to today? No. Anything else I need to handle before? Okay, great. My parliamentarian says I'm still okay. And do I have a motion for adjournment?
Kriminger, motion to adjourn.
Kriminger, motion to adjourn. And do I have a second?
Collier, second.
Collier, second. All right. Any further discussion? No. All right, great. And all in favor, hands up, please. Sure.
Hand up.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. And we are adjourned. We'll see you next time. Thank you all for your work.